Welcome to the Empowered Women channel with your host, Coach Depo Lipidi. Coach Depo, a certified leadership coach and author, brings you the Word of God today. It is our hope that today's message will encourage and empower you to do great things in your life. Be blessed as you listen.
I want to welcome you again to another edition of the Empowered Woman. It's my pleasure to be back and to share with you. We're back on the health series. We've been talking about different things. We've talked about the heart, we've talked about the teeth, we've talked about, exercise, the food we eat and everything. But today I have with me a special guest. She's very dear to my heart. Dr. Tolu, we call her Dr. T. She's a physician, scientist, she's a creative, she's a woman of many parts. And she's here to talk to us about holistic self-care, not just healing, self-care as women, as a modern day woman. She wants to talk to us. She's a modern day woman herself. And I want to say welcome, Dr. Tolu. We're glad to have you.
Thank you so much, Coach D. It's really nice to be on this forum with you.
It's a pleasure to have you, and I'm glad you were able to honor our invitation to come. Let me tell you a little bit about Dr. T before we move on. She's a woman of many parts, and as a woman of many parts that she is, she works in academia, tech, public health, patient safety, and she's extremely passionate about digital health. Now, I don't know what that is, but she knows, and that's the important thing. As long as she knows, she's very passionate about digital health and its ability to improve health outcomes at the population level. In other words, for us, the general populace, digital health has the ability to improve our health. On the creative side, Dr. T is a storyteller. She's a certified John Maxwell coach, and she's a public speaker. So I'm proud to say she's a John Maxwell coach, just like me. Yay.
Yes.
And one thing about Dr. T, and I hope she gives us a dose of that, is her laughter. She laughs. She has a beautiful laugh. She has beautiful teeth. And I hope we get to see her laughing a lot today. Her laugh actually transforms a room when she's in a room. And that's one of the gifts that God has given her. As a woman of many parts, she's navigated burnout herself. And so she believes wellness and self-care should be holistic. And her mantra is, wellness is a gift you must give to yourself. Wellness, hear me and hear me well. Wellness is a gift you must give to yourself. Now, if wellness is a gift we must give to ourselves as women, as modern day women, how do we go about it? Let me tell you, she offers life coaching. She helps you to set boundaries and build thriving relationships with yourself and others. And she's a boundaries and self-care coach. So I want to encourage you to reach out to her for a coaching session. If you don't know how to reach her, just reach me. I'll make sure that I link you up with her. But we women, empowered women, we need to be able to set boundaries. We need to understand self-care and be able to take care of ourselves. So if you want her to come, speak to your group about wellness is a gift, she's available. Wellness, again, is a gift you must give to yourself. And she's available to come talk to you or give you one-on-one coaching in that regard. So at this point, again, I want to say welcome, Dr. Tolu. Thank you, Dr. T, for coming on board. My first question to you is, when you talk about burnout, I know you've been there, I've been there too. Burnout is not a good thing, but can you briefly just explain to us as modern day women what exactly we mean by burnout?
Thank you so much for having me and the elaborate introduction. And yes, I and Coach Dale go way back. And actually, we share a lot of common things, including co-authoring a book together. I forgot
right.
that. So, burnout is, I think one of a very good example I can share was during the pandemic. So part of my career, I worked in the front line during the pandemic, which
right.
I'm sure we're hearing a lot of things in the news about, healthcare workers. And
right.
the best way to put that, because sometimes, even depression mimics burnout. So you're wondering, what does that mean? But specifically, burnout is usually probably related to your professional or your work life. And as you know, as modern day women, especially depending on the culture or where you come from, there's a tendency to put ourselves last. Also, women have a high tolerance of pain. I remember in my younger years, I used to have, like, so for example, very painful periods, but you just suck it up. You show up at work, right? You
Right,
say it's
right.
nothing. And it's even, but as a physician and as a patient, I've seen that where a lot of times women's pain, are ignored. So, with burnout, you can feel, the things you used to have energy for, you stop having energy for them. You just cannot take one more thing. Maybe you're a naturally patient person. You see yourself cranky and just yelling at every little thing, or you don't have energy to do the things
Like you used
you
to
normally
do.
do. And to be honest, some of these things you might actually need a physician to help you diagnose, or a therapist, because like I said, both burnout and depression can mimic each other, and
Wow.
you're able to distinguish how that looks like for yourself. So for me, it looked like, I remember being at this job where after the workday, I just go on, turn on Netflix. That's how we had Netflix subscription. We don't have Netflix subscription because they stopped password sharing. I'm like, I'm not paying $10 for that. And I would start watching a series, and day one, day two. And that's why it's very important to have people that love us around us, that knows how we are normally. And they can
Right.
call us like, hey, this is not how you usually are. Something is going on. So for me, my husband would be like, you would not watch a movie for the life of you on a weekday. But here you are sitting down for hours, just basically numbing out, right? It's like, just so stressed. I don't know how to. And then after work, I just turn on the series and you're just watching it mindlessly, because that's how I'm telling myself I'm trying to relax, because I don't have the capacity to even do anything else. So that could be those are small examples you could
Yeah.
figure out, in your life. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing, Dr. T. So when you talk about burnout, we're looking at a situation where I don't have energy to do the things that I would do normally. I'm just tired. I become cranky, and sometimes it's like I'm falling into depression. So as women, we need to be careful, particularly because you said we tend to put ourselves last. And
Yes.
I am very guilty of that. Everybody first, church, husband, work, everybody, children, and then I don't take care of myself, which is where self-care comes in. At my job, we had somebody come talk to us one day, and she said self-care is not selfishness, and I preach that now, like no man's business. She said self-care is not selfishness, because if you don't take care of yourself, it's hard to take care of other people. You cannot give what you don't have. Pretty
That's
much is
true.
what she was saying. When we talk about self-care, you're saying it should be holistic. But before we get to talking about it being holistic, your mantra is wellness is a gift you must give to yourself. How
Yes.
does wellness relate to self-care? Or are they the same thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So before I go on, there's something I wanted to share with the audience, which is, you deserve to be well.
Amen to
You
that.
deserve to be well. And I
Amen.
say that because a lot of us who practice self-abandonment and self-neglect, a lot of these things starts with the mind. We've already convinced ourselves that we're not deserving. And
Wow.
I have been there both as a healthcare provider, firstborn of my family, just in a position where throughout my life, I'm always taking care of people. And it's easier, the point is, it's easier for me to give somebody a $50, $100 gift. And I would find every reason in the world not to spend that same amount of money on myself.
Right.
And when I began to deal with, because you're saying, what is the difference? It's like, what is the root of this? There's something somewhere along the line that has convinced you that you don't deserve it.
You're not worth it.
And yes, yes. And it's, so you have to dismantle some of these limiting beliefs and this mindset. So talk about wellness on a holistic level, because so I ran a survey a while ago asking some professional women, what wellness be to them, or what self-care would look like. And people had different answers. And the way I see it on a holistic level is that it's not just, oh, I'm going to get a massage, I'm going to do manicure, pedicure. Good if that's your thing, but how are you feeling inside? How is your mental health? How is your environment? How are your relationships? Because all of these things, especially for women, they all work together. So for example, I'm someone who is I'm a minimalist-ish. I say that because I don't have just 20 clothing in my closet. But the thing is, I noticed a few years ago that clutter really, really causes me to be anxious.
Wow.
So, and people have said the way your space is physically is a reflection of the state of your mind. And there was a time I noticed that no matter how I was working from home, I cleared my desk. Within a week or two, things just started accumulating. And it was for me also being because one of my trainings that I'm epidemiologist as a researcher, I look at patterns and trends and it gives you an answer. And I'm telling myself, if my outside environment is a reflection of the state of my mind, so things are jumbled up inside. But also it's like a negative feedback loop because then when things are jumbled up inside and my outside is also cluttered, then I'm getting anxious and nervous. But as soon as I clear that place, I notice an overall calm in my body, right? So in wellness, I take it as health. And there's this common WHO definition as wellness is when you're physically, emotionally, all the areas of your life is like you're healthy. It's not just, oh, my eye is not aching. It's like, are you okay physically? Are you okay emotionally? But for me, I put it as also your social relationships, right?
Okay.
Are you tolerating toxic behavior or toxic people in your life? Sorry, I hit a nerve.
You hit a nerve, yeah.
You're afraid. One of the things that I'm working on in my current life is even wellness. Expression is a form of self-care, wellness. And depending on maybe your culture or let's go there, sometimes religion. And I'm not saying a relationship with Jesus, but some people are so religious. There's some part of religion that has suppressed you. You combine that all together, and there is no expression as a form of healthy self where you cannot speak. So for me, it's like being afraid to say some things or do something because I'm afraid of what people would say. Even though those people at this point in time, they don't pay my bills. Nobody can beat me. You're an adult. And in all honesty, but it's like the limiting the mindset, the conditioning over the years of say people pleasing.
Right.
So it's like if for example, let's say for example, you are a leader in church and you're super involved, but then you notice that is affecting maybe your home life or your ability to work out, and you say, okay, I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to, instead of going to church 4 times a week, I'm going to do 2. But then there's that fear of what would people say?
People pleasing.
Would they say I am, backsliding, or I am no longer committed to God just because I'm taking a step back? Or would you say, you know what, I deserve to be well?
I deserve
to be well. And with the amount of this time coming, I'm burning out. I'm exhausted. I don't have time with my kids. I don't have time with my spouse. And I'm not sleeping well. And if I take these 2 days off, I can actually get more hours to sleep, or I can actually spend more time with my family and make a home-cooked meal. So we all have to decide what wellness is for us. What does it take for you to be well? And what are you willing to let go of to get there? Because what I've seen in a few women and a few people that I've coached is that they want to be well, but they also want to hold on to things the way they are.
Right.
It doesn't work out that way.
Right. Oh my goodness, Dr. T, I love it. I love everything you've said. Now I'm taking notes as we're going because this is helping me as well. You talked about clutter, that my space reflects what's going on inside. I had no idea because your story and my story, my office desk at home, I work from home most times. My office desk, I clean it, and then within a week, there's sticky notes everywhere. Is that a reflection of what's going on inside me? I had no idea. Well, I'm going to be very intentional about that going forward. But you said something about deserving to be well. I deserve to be well. But the root problem from what I see and from my experience is my self-worth.
Yeah.
If I don't value myself, then I'm going to be trying to please everybody. I'm going to be more concerned about what people will say. And I've been in that space. I was in that space for many years. What will people say? If I take this step, what will people say? How can we, I don't know. I mean, I think you answered that question. I don't need to ask it. Every one of us has to decide what's best for them. But the starting point is understanding that you deserve to be well. You are worth being well. You are well worth it. You know, somebody said, don't let people dictate who you are. What will people say? I want to please everybody. I can't cut down on church. There was a time I stopped going to night vigils because it was impacting my health. And at that time I had come to a conclusion that I need to be well. I spoke to one of my doctor friends who's a sleep specialist. And that's one of the things he said. He said, staying up too late every day, especially for women, is tough.
I have a fun story.
So we're talking about wellness. I deserve to be well. That's the starting point. If I deserve to be well, then I need to take steps, set boundaries, which is what you coach us about, boundaries and self-care. How do I care for myself? But if I don't know where I'm coming from, then I cannot know where I'm going. Am I deciphering everything you're telling me correctly?
Yes. And for if there are people in your audience who are Christians, I want to say something about that sleep thing. I have, but by the nature of my background and training, being a physician and all of that, you have weird sleep schedule. There was a time I was in grad school and also working. So I will work 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And I was in a setting of like an ICU, and then at 8 a.m. I'll be in class. So, and then when I always text people always ask me, do you sleep? I'm like, of course I slept. But the truth is, my body wasn't sleeping, but you just get used to it. And I tell you, and I'm looking at you people that are in your 20s and 30s, it catches up with you. But one thing I'm bringing that up is that most recently, I have sleep issues, and my husband said something like, are you worried or what's going on? And then one day I was like, well, I have to wake up to do vigil. My background is kind of similar to yours, like, vigils, like 12 midnight or whatever. And I was having a lot of health issues. This is for real. And my husband told me, if you can just sleep for 1 week, I think that some of these things will go, because blood work, that's what I'm talking about, holistic level, right? Blood work was fine. Medically speaking, the doctors could not find anything wrong, but I was not feeling well. And a lot of times, most of us are sick with things that a doctor cannot find. Most of us are sick with things that Western medicine cannot take care of.
Wow.
And that's why we have to go inside and begin to ask those questions, whether there are negative or toxic patterns in relationships, your attachments to work, workaholism, or you're trying to prove something, or your self-worth. And I was arguing, and I said, I have to do an night vigil. And then my husband looked at me in the eye and said, does God only answer prayers at night? Yes. If you're telling me not to do night vigil, wake up and do night, like somebody has to cover this household in prayers, It's like, the God you serve, is he only on duty at night?
Right.
And begrudgingly, I took his advice. And I took a sleep aid and tried to sleep for a week. I wake up in the morning and I'm bouncing off the wall. It's like all my problems has disappeared. So sometimes when you're sleep deprived, a lot of times, some people you meet on the road that maybe come across as hateful or just lethargic, there's nothing wrong with them. Sometimes you just need to sleep.
Wow.
And a lot of times, most of my things has to do with like, you got to sleep. When talking about self-care on a holistic level, Are you eating nutritious food? Are you eating at the right time? One of my habits is self-neglect is that I forget to eat. And while being transparent here, Coach DL knows just before this call, I was running late. And that was because I'd been going back to back since I woke up before 7. And my husband said, you haven't eaten anything today. I was like, if somebody around doesn't know your pattern, that so when things get stressful, right? As you said, the default is self-neglect, self-abandon, take care of everybody and everything. And I had all this appointment back to back. So my goal is, I got to meet this appointment. I got to meet this person. But Coach DL, being the kind and wonderful person she was, she's like, go eat. I can wait for you, right? She gave me permission to take care of myself because I was trying to like stuff my mouth just to join the call because I was running late. Things didn't go as planned earlier on. But that's even me where I've worked so much on myself to take care of myself on a holistic level. But I also know my tendencies. So a lot of times when I'm around people and I feel safe with them, because there also has to be psychological safety
Right.
for wellness to occur, to say, hey, Coach Jill, can you check up on me from time to time? Just ask me, have you eaten? I know you have to drink, you have a goal to drink water, a gallon a day. Have you? There was a friend I told, I said, I want to set a goal for myself to take 10 to 11,000 steps on my Fitbit every day, right? And she just has to ask me, have you done that? Because that's how I'm taking care of myself by moving, especially if you work a job where you're by your desk, which a lot of people do. So those are the kind of things. And I wanted to add this, don't try to like eat the entire elephant at once. You want to see, because usually I usually look for what is the low hanging fruit here? What is that measure that if I tip this one, it will have a ripples, effect on the other things in my life, right? For me, it's sleep. I know if I sleep well, I'm not going to yell at my husband because I'm less cranky, right? I'm going to make better decisions. I'm going to feel like I have more energy and more capacity.
Right.
And it's just better to relate with people, generally speaking.
Okay. So I had sleep. We all need to sleep. We need to sleep. We've talked about Empowered Woman Channel. We've talked about exercise. And one of the things that I do is, go walking. So when you talked about 10,000 steps, you saw me clapping. I have an app called Step Up, and I use it to track my steps. Today I'm at 5,000 already, and it's just about 2 p.m. I'm going to go out, and for the last 1 week, I've been hitting that 10,000 every day, closing all my 3 rings every day. I have a watch that I use to count my steps. So that's that's one good way of making sure that, we keep up with exercise. But one thing you said that stood out for me is an accountability partner. In our journey of wellness, what I'm hearing is that you cannot walk that journey alone. You need somebody to walk it with you. So you have your husband telling you to eat. If I don't have a husband to tell me to eat, how do I remind myself? I can call on a friend.
Yes.
You told your friend about, wanting to do 10,000 to 11,000 steps, and all she needs to do is ask you. Find a friend, phone a friend, call a friend, somebody to help you, so that we can all be on track. I've seen too many women, and it pains me, it hurts me, it grieves my heart that too many women are falling ill because of the stressors in our lives. You talked about toxic environment. Too many environments are toxic. Toxic relationships, abuse, all these things tend to impact our health as women, but we don't even know it. Culture says, do, go. But at some point, we have to pause and say, I'm well worth the care. Now, we're talking about, wellness. We're talking about, being well. Wellness is a gift you have to give yourself, but on a holistic level, which means all around. Are you eating right? Are you sleeping well? Are you exercising?
How are your relationships?
How are your relationships? What's your heart? What's the state of your heart? Because sometimes when our hearts are not in a good space, the tendency is everything else falls apart. So how do we start to set boundaries so that things don't fall apart?
That is a great question. And I was going to add to that because I know there are some people who will say, I don't have any friend that I can trust with this. And I get that, I've been there. Unfortunately, my best friend of 20-something years passed in January. So it's been a hard year because there's some things where I will naturally go to where it's like, I don't have that. And sometimes, unintentionally, the people that are closest to us might not be the best accountability partner.
True.
For example, if I want to stop, say I don't have a sweet tooth, but if I had a sweet tooth and I told my husband, make sure I don't eat sweet things, it's not the best accountability partner because I just need to wink once and then be like, oh yes, you can have your sweet, right? So it's not everybody that can hold us accountable, because they may feel like, oh, I don't want you to be in pain or stress, or they might be very lax because maybe they don't have the same goals. Now, this friend that I said, hold me accountable for 10,000, 11,000 steps. I'm not really close to her, but I see a post online and she goes to the gym regularly. So I know that fitness is a thing. Right.
Okay.
So that's another way to select. And then obviously, if you don't have anyone, there's some things in my life I'm working through and I don't have anyone to work with. You have therapists, you have coaches, you can reach out to a coach like me to say, hey, I want to work on this thing. Could you hold me accountable? Obviously, the job of a therapist is different from a coach. A coach gets you moving, achieve the thing, right? Like Coach DL, a therapist is more like, okay, tell me more.
Right. They just let you talk.
Talk therapy, which is also good. Sometimes you have friends for that. And so, how do you set boundaries? Maybe there's some ways of being and living that no longer serves you. You want to look at your environment. Environment is powerful. Depending on the kind of environment you are in, if everybody around you is always eating out, eating Chick-fil-A, then that's all you're going to eat. But if you're like, I want to be I don't know, Miss World, let's give that as an example, or I want to be a model. I believe you can do it. Like, how do they eat? How do they train? How do they sleep? And you have to come out of your comfort zone, because unfortunately, the people you know from your day-to-day or regularly might not have the same goals with you, right?
Right.
And if those environments or relationships are triggers for you or traps, right? Then you have to learn to say, I'm sorry, I'm unavailable, or I cannot hang out. How do you say no? Because maybe you know that your self-will is not yet trained. And if you find yourself in that environment, you might sleep. For example, maybe someone who's an alcoholic and goes to AA, they have a sponsor, right? You want to be in the same group of people that are doing the same thing. There was a time when the weather was cold and I wasn't getting my steps, and I needed to get out. I was trying to find in the community that I was, if there were people who are into walking, so that I can do that, right? And if somebody says, oh, I want to talk to you, I'll ask a question like, is this something that we can walk and talk? Because I've been sitting all day, I don't want to sit again and then use that to get my steps. Then a lot of times when things are complicated in our self-care life, like, what are the things that cause me to sabotage? Maybe you have a relationship with someone. So I'll give you a good example. So I had this 1 gallon a day water goal, and I've been doing well with it for like a few weeks. And there is a relationship in my life that is not quite right. And unintentionally, unconsciously, I had a contact with this person. And I noticed it said, because the water that I drink from is timed from 7 a.m.
Yeah.
5 p.m.
I have one of those.
5 p.m. Yes. And this is a gallon. This is a lot of water, which sometimes by 1 p.m. I've already met my goal. Like,
wow.
But having that experience with this person in that environment, there was a trigger, there was an emotional response, and it set me back. And even at 5 p.m. that day, my water level was still 7 a.m. I didn't meet my goal, right? So that's data for you to say, this toxic relationship or environment sets me back on my goal. And I remember that day because I was so pained by that. But for me, it was data, right? So I got into my journal and I wrote down the decision you made a while back to not get yourself involved in this kind of relationship or environment. It's the good decision, because look at what happened today. You are not able to meet your water goal. Sometimes some of us have experiences with people and set us back, and you go like stuffing off your emotions by eating junk food. And so that's how you set boundaries to be. And boundaries, again, I talk about culture and religion. It was very hard for me because I come from a culture and religion where, like you take care of everyone and then you're supposed to be selfless like Christ.
Right.
And some people will misinterpret that as you being selfish because you chose yourself. But hello, who is going to take care of me? Right? Who is going to take care of me?
And that's a key question.
Sadly, in life, especially in the Western world, we're all so busy Because you can only, as I say, you can only give to people what you have.
Right.
And the reality is that no one is coming to save you. Nobody is going to come tell you every morning, brush your teeth, drink your water, make sure you're having a health. No one is coming to save you. Everyone is too busy, right? And so it requires you almost becoming an entirely different person to become a woman who can look at herself in the mirror and say, you deserve to be well. You deserve to have energy. Like sometimes there was a season in my life, I was so tired. I felt like I was like a 90-year-old person. But then I see some people around who are like in their 60s, they had more energy than me. And I'm like, this is not right. How do I feed myself? And I'm not talking about physically, like your soul, talking about holistic level of care. And I realized that I wasn't feeding my soul. And in this regard, I'm talking about self-expression. So what did I do? True story. I got a coloring book from Amazon, a coloring pen. And I began to color those things. That was my beginning of self-expression because I had repressed some of those creative side of me. And my soul was exhausted because it wasn't being fed, right? So it might be different for some people. They just need to be in the nature, in quiet, to just have some time to breathe.
Right.
Yeah, so it's different for everyone. And for me, self-care is having coffee or tea with someone, having a deep, meaningful one-to-one conversation, having a life-giving conversation. For me, that's self-care. If I'm around people and it's a loud party and everyone is just talking and there's no meaningful conversation, that is not self-care for me. It might be self-care for somebody else. So whatever you see that actually feeds your soul, that by the time you're done with that activity or exercise, you feel nurtured, you feel enriched, you feel empowered. As an empowered woman, you just feel your energy levels coming up. You're like, this is it.
Right. Thank you, Dr. T. Interesting you talked about painting, coloring. I started to color too, as part of my therapy, my healing. When I started to choose myself, and when I realized that I deserved to be well, I've been sick for too long, and one of the ways I started to, help myself was just because I remembered that as a young girl, I would draw, I would paint, and so I was like healing my inner child. And so I went back to painting, and I realized how therapeutic, and I've told other women this too in church, that painting is therapeutic for the soul.
Yes.
It just gives you a peace and a calm that only you would understand. But at times,
add something very quickly in terms of boundaries. So even boundaries, sometimes people are afraid of setting boundaries because they think that it might hurt a relationship.
Right.
Let me just set you free in that regard. Somebody who loves you and respects you would honor your boundaries.
Right.
Now, because of the sleep issues I had for a while, I would take sleep whenever sleep comes, right? So I started, one of the things that I was told, like I learned, is that you want to go to bed at the same time and wake up at the same time, right? And sometimes I used to be afraid of that because if I go to bed too early, I might wake up at 1 a.m. and I'm just staring at the ceiling. But I told my husband, if you see me in bed and I'm sleeping, don't wake me for anything, right? Like don't even if I had food or something, like if there's something that is in an emergency, please do not wake me. Like my sleep is sanctity, right? And it's become a prized thing in my home because that is the boundary I'm setting. So if you have any call, you have any activity, and I'm in bed, just make sure there's no noise. Can do whatever I want, but please don't wake me. And sometimes I will say I want to do something at 9 p.m., right? And somehow I went into bed at 7:30 and I slept off. The boundary is, please don't what? Don't wake me. Because that might be the only sleep I would get. And it might even be that we've agreed to go for a function, right? I don't know those people who have activities at 8 p.m. I'm like an old person, I'm already sleeping. And I know it might be difficult to go to that function and back. And I might say, please, can we take a rain check? I'm really feeling exhausted. And I can feel sleep coming. Somebody who loves you and honors you, respect that. Or you had meeting with a friend, like we're going to meet somewhere at 7:30 or 8 at night or somewhere, and you tell the person, hey, I woke up this morning, I'm not feeling great, I'm feeling tired. Can we take a rain check? Somebody who loves you, who honors you, is not going to be mad and end the relationship because you set a boundary. Actually, it should increase the honor, love, and respect in that relationship. And that's why the friends that I have that are stuck with me over the years are people who honor my boundaries, because it's not personal. It's so that, because when I'm well taken care of, I can show up for you in the best way.
Correct.
You know, there is no fun in me hanging out with you and I'm just like, okay, that's right. Because I'm tired and I cannot engage with you as a friend. But when I'm well rested and I am well, I can engage with you and give you the best of me.
Right, right. I absolutely agree. I just wrote this down. When I'm well taken care of, I can show up for you.
Yes.
So to my empowered woman, my listeners, my viewers, I want to say you deserve to be well. Wellness is a gift you must give yourself. I had the story of a woman who labored over her family so much. And then when it came to time, she just dropped down and dead. Stress. We hear of people just being hospitalized and all kinds of things because of stress. You know, Dr. T and I talked about this. The cost of stress is huge. But to prevent us paying that price in the prime of our lives, we need to understand that we deserve to be well, and wellness is a gift that we must give ourselves. Dr. T, I'm taking away so much from our conversation today. I'm going to be very intentional about watching out for the things that trigger me. I love sleep. Honestly, sometimes by 7 p.m., I'm in bed. My sister will call me and she say, "You're in bed again?" I sleep. I sleep.
That's good.
Again,
That's really good.
For years, I was sleep deprived. Not because anybody did it to me, but I did it to myself because I thought I had to keep going. I had to do this. I had to do that. You cannot do everything. You cannot. The empowered woman must learn to delegate. But the step one is, when I think of the Proverbs 31 woman, this is a woman we all call. But this woman had house helps that she took care of.
Thank you. Thank you. She had housekeeper, chef, chauffeur, tailor.
Finally, when God opened my eyes to it, to show that you cannot do everything and that you need to take care of yourself, that's when I started to take care of myself. And this is the message we're passing on to everyone and even to the next generation. It is important to take care of yourself on a holistic level, spirit, soul, body. Yes, we're women. Yes, we're called to be helpers. Yes, we're called to take care of the home. But this closing statement from Dr. T, when I'm well taken care of, I can show up for you. Who's going to take care of you if you don't take care of yourself? I'm not going to leave my home and come take care of nobody. At least I don't pray. I don't pray. I don't pray that I will have to come and tend to you in the hospital. I just pray that all of us will be well. Wellness is a gift. Again, if you want to talk to Dr. T, please let us know. We'll be more than happy to connect you with her. She's a coach. She coaches on boundaries and self-care. Again, her mantra is wellness is a gift you must give yourself. And this is why she's here, to encourage you and to admonish you to give yourself the gift of wellness. Thank you, Dr. T. If we need to, we'll bring you back. Sleep is important. I learned it the hard way, and I'm praying that none of our sisters, no empowered woman would have to learn it the hard way. The next generation, we're trusting that they too will take care of themselves. I think they are better than us in the sense that they understand some of these things, particularly because they grew up in the Western world. But for us who are older, it's time for you to choose yourself. Wellness is a gift you must give yourself. Thank you again, Dr. T. I appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
And I pray that the Lord will bless you and bless your ministry, bless your coaching business in the name of Jesus. To my empowered woman, I look forward to talking to you some more about your health, especially being the modern day woman. Thank you and God bless you. Amen.
So glad you joined us today. Please like, share, and click on the button to subscribe. God bless you.
Jesus.